Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will is bright and chipper as I've seen him in a decade. So
What happens when you get to sleep for a whole weekend after VRMA? It's been
I literally died. I took the red eye home and I was like, I'm just gonna nap really quickly and then continue working. And I woke up at like 2:30 p.m. I was dead.
the US to US red eye is a hard no for me. I've done it once, and God willing, I will never do it again.
You know, it was interesting because obviously it's not like a really long conference, right? But it was like 3 days and change of just like talking constantly and being on. And I had gone back to the hotel to like make sure my bags were ready before I went to dinner with Jonathan and the team at Top Key. Shout out, great dinner. But I was just sitting there like looking at my bed, being like, I could just lie down right now. I hit the wall, but it was a good show.
overall pretty good. Our recap episode will go out sometime today or tomorrow for the listeners. So get to hear from Brandy, myself, and Leo from Truvy, now no longer Super Hog, which you'll hear a little bit inside of the episode. Michael, breaking news for you.
That's breaking news for me.
Super Hog is no
time.
longer, Super Hog is no longer Super Hog. They've rebranded to Truvy, which I think stands for Trust, Verification, and Insurance, or
How did I
review or
miss
something
this?
like that. Yeah, they just announced it at VRMA. So
All right.
walk around with the
wasn't there.
logo. The logo's sick, and the shirts were cool. So congrats to the team over there
All right.
for the fun rebrand and a little bit of growing up, in the words of Leo. I like the grow up mentality. So you'll hear a little bit more in our recap. Make sure you stay tuned for that.
Nice. Well, sans listening to the recap, I heard some mixed reviews on Verma this year. Attendance down a little bit, but energy levels better than the past couple of years. So a little bit of A, a little bit of B.
Yeah, I think it might depend. Like, I think from my personal opinion, I had a much better like time than I thought I was going to have. But then I think maybe if you were a vendor, it wasn't quite as successful. So I know some people have mixed reviews about the sessions, but I only got to go to a couple. But I was on one, so hopefully people got some good things out of that. But I mean, people seem to be engaged. So if you're listening and have any comments on how you thought the sessions were, I'd love to hear some more opinions from, people who attended. But yeah, I think from the vendor side, it wasn't quite as successful.
Yeah, shout out to our partners at Breezeway and Homes and Villas by Marriott Bonvoy for having Brandy and I record at the booth with some of your either team members or clientele. It was a lot of fun to do that, as we're going to have a lot of clips from it. But then also, I think the VRMA attendance topic, it was interesting because it was up but down, and yet it was more, again, they say it was more property manager focused, but it was in the terms of companies rather than people. So there's more short-term rental management companies there than there were vendor companies, but the vendors bring more people than the operators do. So the color-coded lanyard may have felt a little off due to that. But I think it makes sense, because I don't think a property management company needs to bring 20 different people to VRMA. I think it's too expensive and kind of a waste of money, versus your vendors who raise private equity or venture capital have a little bit of cash to spend.
Yeah, I mean, especially now that the tickets are like $1,500 a pop, that's crazy. We used to bring, in the early days, we were bringing like 8 to 10 people, and then that just dramatically went down to like me. So
hey, Shane was there.
Shane was there, and it's basically it's like if anyone's on a panel, then they come. but it's expensive to bring everybody out to all these places. So yeah, I would love to hear listener comments, but I would have to say, I, as I say in the recap, I was like murmuring a lot before going about having to just like, it just totally derails you from whatever work you're doing. But in the end, I just had such a great time seeing everyone. I got actually a lot of things out of it for Romy. And so, yeah, I'm pretty happy about it.
Well, breaking news this week. I guess it wasn't breaking because we've covered it on the show before, but a big push from Airbnb. They might be competitive to the VRMA soon.
Before we move on, though, we got to cover the one really big headline that happened this weekend that should be covered as a number one story. But our 4th birthday, GMH's 4th birthday happened on Saturday. Come on, Michael, you're gonna jump in before our birthday announcement. Let's go.
It was our 4th birthday, and we look like babies in the pictures from.
We've done a lot in 4 years,
1.
so yes, it was a lot.
Multiple kids and bags under the eyes,
and coffee and brandy and Jamie and Europe and hotel. We've done a lot in 4 years.
Yeah. Retreats. We've done a lot. And we've gone from 20,000 downloads the first year to like 3 million last year or something. So
it was close to 2.5 last year. This year I'm pretty sure we'll get to 3. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Like and subscribe. Share this.
Yeah.
Like, comment.
Listen to this episode like 5 times if you could.
Yeah.
Helps out. Just kidding. I wish.
It's
That's
wild.
my perfect segue, though.
Sorry, that was a great segue. I feel bad. I just wanted to make sure we
nail it.
Probably should have used the private chat to say like, hey, here's the order of stuff. But
it's always, we're always a work in progress, constant iteration.
It is a live show too. So
true.
We're not cutting things and editing and doing stuff like that. So anyway, while the Verma event was going on, Airbnb probably timed their announcement to ruffle some feathers by re-announcing their co-host network, which is basically allowing folks that have a home to find other Airbnb superhosts that are above a rating of 4.86 on the reviews, which is a very arbitrary number, but I'm sure it's part of a bell curve somewhere, and letting them manage various aspects of their properties. So it could just be managing the communications. It could be, a backup phone number if a party's happening, but it could be full on property management. So maybe Airbnb is going to have their own version of Verma soon. They did have some pretty big parties in the early days, but they have since stopped those. I think the last one was 2015 or 2016.
Let's bring back the parties. I mean, we know they have the money. Let's see what kind of event they can throw.
I think they've thrown some pretty epic events, but all in all, I don't know how scalable this is going to be. How many people have an average rating of 4.86 that can also then maintain that rating as they add 2, 3, 5, 10 properties. I do think there's probably lots of people that are incredible hosts for their own property because it breathes them. But I just don't know how scalable it is. And I love the initiative. I think it's a good thing because single hosts by Airbnb and Jamie Lane's data do typically outperform on guest expectations than large property management companies. But again, it's the bell curve where large property management companies are going to hit the standard every single time. They just might not go above and beyond like a single host has the time and ability to do.
Totally agree. And the other thing about this too, I was talking to somebody at VRMA, and I won't say her name since that she's an Airbnb ambassador, but getting to play around with this marketplace and seeing, is this actually a way to grow your hosting business or your property management business? And the one kind of feedback she kind of gave out the gate before going into other details was around how a la carte some of these owners or hosts want the service to be. And for a lot of property managers, we just know that doesn't work, right? Like you can't just do communication or price management or whatever. You have to kind of give the full swindle of services in order to justify the percentage that actually makes you money. If you're going to do 4% for just guest communication, you might as well just outsource it to Bestie AI and call it a day, because at the end of the day, that's all you're going to need. But in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like they just want to pick and pull in order to save money, but it's not going to work that way. So a lot of the people on this current hosting network may not be the clientele you want as an owner or even a person working under your flag in business. So it's, I'm sure, still going to grow over time and more inventory will get added and better hosts or whatever will be filling up the spots. But I don't think it's going to be something too dramatic for growing business in the hosting or co-host or property management world. So
It's almost like they need a management company to manage all of these homes. I like, just going through this, it's like I really admire the fact that especially Brian wants to like stick to this. The hosts are powering this whole enormous company, but it is very tough, as we all know, to manage all of this. So I see this just kind of continuing to evolve. Like maybe the next iteration is, hiring a co-host to fully do like basically mini companies popping up to take over your listing. And what I also thought was interesting, and this isn't a hot take, we've talked about it before, but the Airbnb is kind of slowly morphing into a PMS as well with all the different offerings they have. And I just think that that's interesting because obviously all of the big PMSs probably hate that. And, as they have these people so entrenched in their ecosystem, but if they're not able to provide them the bookings, like if they're in a market where booking.com is really, taking off, like they're going to start to realize that they're not going to get those bookings unless they have a broader distribution strategy. So that might be a little bit further down the line, but it's going to be interesting to see how these people who have really become so entrenched in the Airbnb ecosystem, if they are ever able to break out of it.
It's almost like the co-hosts should just be called pro hosts, but who am I for a marketing guy? I do think it's going to be a struggle as someone adds a second, third, fourth property under their own co-hosting to maintain that level, because if these are people that don't have time to manage their second home and they're not wanting to use a real professional management company that's been in the market for 20 years and has these maintenance and cleaning vans driving all over town and advertising, I think it's going to be a struggle. They're clearly trying to take the cheaper way out, which will inevitably result in lower scores, and that's going to hurt the co-hosting person who's probably really, really good at it and very passionate about it. So they have to be very cautious and cognizant of the clients that they want to bring on if they want to scale this business. So I do think there's a bit of perverse incentives there on a couple of fronts, but I would just advise for those that are trying to build their co-hosting business off of the platform of Airbnb to be careful, unless Airbnb is going to soften some of these restrictions that they have to be even shown as viable.
Well, go ahead, Brandy.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, part of the some of the other like interesting things that I saw on this release reminded me of some very interesting features we've seen from Homes and Villas. One of the new features is suggested destinations that's going off based on your previous history and all of that. But at Verma, Will and I got to talk to Nitin and Ed from Homes and Villas, who designed their generative AI program. And it's just interesting to me that Homes and Villas has really like taken off in that respect, really pioneered something that even the bigger Marriott brand didn't. And that Airbnb has purchased AI companies, and that this seems very basic to me. And maybe there's more coming out, but it's very interesting who is making like the leaps ahead in that space, when I kind of thought I would have put my money on Airbnb for that originally.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is too, I wonder if we're going to see iterations. Well, I know we are going to see iterations of this co-hosting marketplace, but my kind of question is if they're really pushing like guest favorite and these other certain percentages on the consumer side, right, where you have to hit such a certain score to get a badge or a label. Hopefully they'll maybe do something internally inside the hosting market saying like, hey, this is a host favorite like property, this is a host favorite host, like this person does execute. Because I think, yes, the overall line is like bigger property management companies can take or can't take as better care or great care. Nah, I'm rephrasing that. Big property management companies have a harder time executing on the hospitality piece due to the how big a scale. But with these co-hosts that do grow their business, I know that 5 properties is not the same as 1 and 10 is not the same as 5. So I would really be curious to see how they grow that iteration on ranking for these co-hosts, because I know it's going to get harder as they grow their business. And then to go into the AI comment, Brandy, that you brought up, I am surprised too that Airbnb wasn't the one to kind of go into, but Jamie Lane in our bigger GMH group chat sent a podcast episode that Brian Chesky was on with I forget his name, Scott something, Prof G, Scott Galloway. There we go. With Scott Galloway talking about AI, and yes, AI would have been an easy, or a AI chat or customer service piece would have been a really easy low hanging fruit for Airbnb. I do agree, but it also would have probably been a waste of time. And I think I do like Brian's approach on the bigger picture of AI, especially with their $200 million acqui-hire. I think, going into the infrastructure of the actual user face is going to be way more important for Airbnb in the long run than it would be to create just a customer service chatbot or anything like that. I'm hoping that they actually build something that kind of goes into Brian's vision of connecting people together to doing something that's actually beneficial to humanity and travelers, rather than just another AI, like, open AI like chat communication tool. So that's just my 2 cents.
The next iteration for Airbnb, we've seen them roll out some locks. They already have a pricing tool that's, if you're using it and relying solely on Airbnb's pricing tool, stop.
Don't
do it. But as people start co-hosting on the platform more and more, they're going to need more professional software grade tools. And so that's going to pull people off of Airbnb and into a PMS system, which is then going to promote going into Vrbo and Booking.com and direct bookings. So unless Airbnb has this whole ecosystem planned out to keep the users on platform, they're somewhat kind of cannibalizing their own business by encouraging those to go more broadly. If you have a single property, then you can probably, depending on the market and the type of property, probably get by just listing on Airbnb and using the tools they have. But if you have 5 and definitely 10, 20, you are missing the boat on a lot of things if you're not using more professional tools. So I would expect Airbnb's next announcement to probably go into some of those additional services. Schlag integration is not enough. A pricing tool that benefits occupancy but not revenues is not a great pricing tool, all in all. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll experience more tools to come from Airbnb.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially the pricing one is the one I'm always like, do not use it. Like that is not in your best interest. And I think that'll be interesting also, because if that continues to be the case where it is prioritizing and favoring kind of occupancy, like you said, rather than revenue, and like, the algorithm and positioning, if their revenues start to decline, they're going to look for other ways to supplement that and other distribution, strategies. And I'm just thinking, like, if you're one of these co-hosts that has a huge network, let's say of 15 homes that you're managing, like you're going to need to see like the tape chart. What does that look like? And, having like, there's just the complexities. Like, I just feel like all of a sudden they're going to start building this incredibly heavy product on top of the site. So it'll be interesting if they manage to do that successfully, or if they keep kind of like jack of all trades, master of none in some of these areas where they have like enough offerings for the ones and twosies, but like as it gets bigger, they're not going to develop that further.
Yeah, my last comment on this, I think going into what you just kind of said, Brandy, too, would be the chaos of, let's say you find a property inside this co-host network, you want to work with them, it's a great property to add to your portfolio, but they're listed on Vrbo and other platform listing sites, and they have a property management software that isn't yours, because you're probably most likely, if listening to this show, someone who has a property management software on top of not just Airbnb. So how do you unwind all this, right? Like, how do you integrate this tech that doesn't want to work together? How do you get a property that is really great for your portfolio, but actually can't integrate because you have to either unload it from a PMS and re-upload it? There's just that type of work for the commission, in my opinion, probably isn't worth it. So it might be a stickier business. And I'm hoping maybe this isn't the only business that Brian Chesky is putting bets on for their billions of dollars of line item to add to the company every year. But I know he said he wants to add 1 to 2 businesses, $1 billion business line items to Airbnb every year. And I think it's
Me too, Brian.
Me too. I was like, me too.
Same.
I'll take your cast offs. If it's like 500 mil, that's fine. I'm happy with that too.
We'll settle
if there's a zero missing, I'm totally fine with it. So.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, they could just sell to Uber, but I don't know.
They could.
Uber seems like they might be in the market for a travel company that does more than just rideshare and grocery deliveries. So there has been some articles floating around that Uber has expressed interest in buying Expedia. Personally, I think this might be a bellwether just to see how the markets treat it, if it's something they should pursue. I don't think there's much behind this story. To me, there's both these businesses are too big to kind of try and meld together. I can get into defending why, but I'll save my comments for after Brandy.
This is where it gets a little feisty, because I think we should let Will go first. We have some for the little behind the scenes, but today's pre-show chat was not contentious, but we have very differing opinions on this. So I think Will is a Uber fanboy, absolute Uber stan. So why don't you give us your take on all of this first?
Uber stan, that's so good. Okay, well, one of my predictions, I don't think it was this year or last year's predictions, but no, it was this year. It was this year. So I did predict in one of my predictions that Uber would be more involved in travel. It won't be just ride sharing and all this other stuff, due to, we flash back to 2021 when we were in Miami, the Book Direct show. I actually got to use the beta for the travel kind of product within Uber. So connecting your ride to the airport to the hotel, and vice versa. It was a smooth experience. It was great. It was super awesome. And it kind of went away after 2021. We saw a lot of shift in the Uber product, obviously, as they tried to focus on getting more profitable due to Dara's takeover of the reign. But Dara has a deep relationship with Expedia. It's just speculation that Uber wants to acquire Expedia to make a super travel app where it's rides, groceries, hotels, short-term rentals, airlines, you name it, all bundled in together. And I think it's a great thing. I, again, am a big fan of Uber. I had to use Uber pretty much for 3 years without having a car here in Denver, and big fan of the product, but I think it's going to open up so many doors. And yes, the counter option or counter argument is that, why can't they just do this now? Why can't Uber?
Well, we'll get into that. Don't play our side of the fence, Will.
Yeah, you can't.
So
well, I was gonna counter argue, but all right.
I am a big partnerships guy. I love how two companies can kind of come together for both companies' benefits. And Expedia's white label product already exists, and it's a $25 billion line item each year for Expedia. So it's huge. And this whole mega travel app can already exist because Uber can already white label all of Expedia's flights, hotels, inventory, etc., and take a commission of every booking that happens. Now, why would you not roll that out in a really big way first and see if it works or not before buying a 20 plus billion dollar, well, somebody can fact check me on what their market cap is, but a many time over $1 billion company?
So Uber did trial this in the UK, and they have seen huge success with the airline and the the train subway type stuff. I don't know about airline stuff yet, or hotels, sorry, but airline and trains are doing really well. We're actually seeing a 60% repeat usage for the train. I think it was a higher percentage for something like airlines. So already good adoption in the UK. Just to counter that really quick.
Yeah,
before
one pseudo small country.
It's a big market for
brand.
Uber. It's a big market.
It's probably a big market, but it's not America.
No, but still, it's a great market to put your toe in. You can't say it like you can't counteract the.
Okay, so the test is great. Now you move on to the second test, right? You don't go from.
I'm sure they're still in the first test. They haven't even fully tested out everything yet.
There you go.
You gotta give them some grace.
About, Will.
Fight.
It makes no sense for Uber to buy Expedia. You can white label all of their stuff, take a margin on every transaction, and save billions and billions of dollars. Now, Expedia is a historically fantastic company. They perform very well on the market. So anyone that would want to buy them everyone should want to buy Expedia, but it doesn't make sense to.
Yeah, I would say I kind of agree with all the points that have been said so far. So I think that yes.
Don't ride the fence.
No. I'm not. Let me lay out my argument. So I agree that there is a huge opportunity for Uber to create this seamless transportation experience, and it might be going well in the UK, and that's great. I think that the better option is the one that Michael has proposed, where it's more in their B2B white labeling. It carries way less risk. And one of the reasons why I think this just won't happen is the complexities of a merger or acquisition of this size. You have barring the regulatory issues that would probably come, maybe it would get through those, but it would certainly be a roadblock. And then you just have they are both behemoth companies, and that a merger like that or an acquisition could totally drag on the businesses of both of those companies while they figure out how to mesh that. And so that was one of the points that was brought up in the Skift article. This would just be such a near-term drag on both businesses that it could prove to be disastrous. So and then when I was doing some research this morning on this, it seemed like everybody had it was a little bit of a kerfuffle over all of this, but it seems like a little bit of a nothing burger. They call it banker whispers. There's nothing really concrete here right now.
Yeah. It's all speculation, nothing real so far.
To me, it's probably Uber putting a line in the water and seeing how the market reacts. I know he's got deep ties to Expedia, but Hopper is a non-public traded. It's a private company. It's probably a much easier acquisition,
cheaper,
far less proven, but it is more app mobile first type of client. So it could be one of these. Look over here. We're actually trying to do something with Hopper. But
there's a reason why Expedia broke up with Hopper in the first place. So I think Hopper, as much as it could be an option, and I do agree, their B2B side was probably a better shift for them in general, but I don't think they have the inventory that attracts Uber to even want to acquire, especially if Expedia broke up with them due to lack of full trust and transparency with their traveler and consumers.
I believe Uber already has an existing partnership with Hopper, so that was in the Skift article. So I wouldn't discount that. But furthermore, the efficiencies that you gain from an Expedia to an Uber, they're not the same business. They're not the same business model. I don't think there's a whole lot of efficiencies garnered by merging two companies together. Like if you merged two property management companies in Miami, it'd be much more beneficial to Brandy than buying a taxi cab company, right? It just doesn't.
So I should put a hold on buying the Miami taxi company. That was the M&A strategy for the rest of the year.
I'm not against it. Diversify your revenue streams, but if you're already publicly traded, then be careful. So I think this is a big nothing burger story to begin with. I don't think that this is going to happen. I'll stake it right now. You can flag this for 2 years from now if it ever does.
Yeah, I love this. This is like a mini predictions episode where we can see what happens.
Well, one thing I didn't predict is that we would have our own coffee brand this year. I don't think Will or either of us did, but if you're interested in Well and Good Morning Coffee, then certainly let us know. We can get you some great coffee out.
Before we fully wrap, I'm going to leave on a more positive note for the Uber Expedia thing, because I think people need to think and adore the bigger picture more often than not. And as much easier as it would be to just white label, there's no data, their Uber can grow into such a big platform that everyday users and travelers will have, with loyalty rewards built in with one key. Not only the credit card business line item is going to grow, like this thing is just made to happen. So Expedia, Uber, start crossing them T's, dotting those I's, and make this shit happen for me in the next 2 years so I can prove Michael and Brandy both wrong. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. We'll come back in 2 years. We'll see what happens.
I love it. Well, for the listeners, the live viewers, we try to stick to our 30 minutes run time as much as possible. So thank you. If you have been a fan or tuning in the last 4 years, we appreciate you. AKA shout out to Terry White, who always tunes in. Got to see at VRMA. Just super impressed with all the commentary you bring to the show. I think it's exciting news. And I also just found out that Terry listens to All In. So let's go. I love that show. Long story short, grab the link in the show notes. Make sure you follow along. You can see the articles where we get our information. Shout out to Skift for the amazing articles that we have full access to now. And of course, like always, we'll see you guys again next week.